Morning, everyone. This is Dwayne Theobald again for Colloquy number 2. What I want to do in this video is to, of course, touch a little bit on, in the latter part of my discussion, on the notion of fatherhood and the crossover. I want to bring that back in. And I also want to mention some other aspects from the other two texts. But what I want to focus on first is bringing in some secondary material, particularly as it relates to becoming a more fully functioning adolescent and, of course, becoming an adult. Bushman and Haas in Chapter 1 provides some information from Havikhurst, particularly related to the developmental adolescent tasks. You know, different things as an adolescent, and all of us were adolescents at one point, had to deal with and things we had to grapple with. You know, as you're trying to find yourself and you're trying to find out who you are, you know, how you want to behave, how you want to exist in certain arenas and certain areas of your life. That's essentially what kind of Havikhurst presents. The one task that I want to focus on is on page 10. And it's the achieving a proper masculine or feminine social role. As an adolescent, whether you're a male or female, of course, you do want to try to figure out who you are. And ideally, you're going to figure out who you are by, of course, understanding your own experiences, but you're also going to try to figure out how you should behave in certain areas and certain instances in your life by watching other people and seeing how other people behave and seeing how other people adapt to certain situations, how they speak to other people and things like that. So what I want to do is just briefly read a little portion of this and then dive into some of these texts. On page 10, it states that achieving a proper masculine or feminine social role is the second developmental task. Again, the point is developing an acceptable adult social role. The task of achieving manhood or womanhood is complicated by the contemporary ferment over social roles, the erosion of traditional models, and the lack of clarity for replacements. What I really want to focus on for the next few minutes is one little piece of this, and it's the notion of the erosion of traditional models. Now, I'm going to state up front that I don't think there's ever one particular, role model or social model that an adolescent should follow that's going to be perfect. Nobody is perfect anywhere ever. You're just not going to find that person. But what I do want to kind of touch on are some of the things within these texts that present, I guess, a little bit of hope for some of these narrators, that the people that are in their lives that, are there to kind of serve as examples are, of course, fallible. They do have, they do fail, they do make mistakes, but they do have some things that are positive. The best example I can give you of a good role model is for Lena in Between Shades of Grey. Of course, as I mentioned in the previous video, she does have her father who's physically there in one portion of the text, very briefly. And then, of course, is mentioned in flashbacks and through her memories and through some of the things she wishes for her father. But, of course, throughout most of the text, we have Lena's mother, who is a very strong, very courageous, very convicted woman who knows what's going on around her, knows what she has to do to survive, and does what she can to take care of her children and herself so that she can survive. And ultimately, I would argue, I'll make sure that her children are taken care of, so much so that it ends up costing her her life. But of course, she sees no shame in that. She's done what she needs to do as a mother and as a person to take care of those around her. And Lena has that example to serve. Of course, the situations that they're in, again, I would not imagine Lena's ever going to be in a situation like that again, but she still is able to garner some of those skills to help her build some of those skills and build a sense of self and who she can be based on the way she sees her mother and the way her mother behaves. In Alexi's text, Junior, I don't know that he necessarily has one person to look to who's a really solid example, because everyone in that text, for the most part, is problematic. I mean, his father is, his mother is, sister is problematic, Rowdy, Eugene, pretty much everyone in that text has problems. Even Junior has problems. But I think there are various parts of each one of those characters, that each one of the people that Junior interacts with, that he can take some of those tenets and take some of those behaviors and use that as a way to kind of build his own sense of self. And of course, Junior, as being a very independent person and kind of taking charge of his own life, can also bring his own self to some of the pieces that he pulls from other people to figure out how he can deal with certain situations. And of course, the one text, the text, of course, I focused on the last video, the crossover. I mentioned, of course, that Chuck is problematic as a father, and he is. And along the same lines, he's problematic as a role model. Not just because he forces his own ideas and his own, passion behind basketball on his sons, because of course they are very passionate about it, but I think he forces it a little too much. That's problematic, but I think what's even more problematic is the fact that as a father, as a role model, he's not really presenting a good not really presenting a good example of how you should take care of yourself. And by that I mean specifically physically take care of yourself. As I mentioned in the last video, there's at one point where JB and Josh find the letters that that Chuck received. One being from the LA Lakers offering him the chance to try out, and one being from a doctor telling him either you get this surgery and take care of yourself, or you're not going to play basketball ever again. And because Chuck is who he is, he chooses the latter, and he never plays basketball again. He loses out on a really big opportunity. And then, of course, throughout the rest of the text, there's at various points, Chuck's wife is fussing at him. Go to the doctor. You're not feeling well. You're passing out. You're having chest pains. Whatever. And because of Chuck's previous experiences with doctors, what his father encountered, he chooses not to deal with that. And of course, we see where it gets him. It ends up in the hospital, has a heart attack, and eventually, of course, passes away. Now, I don't want to seem as though I'm vilifying Chuck. I think that there are certain parts of Chuck that are good. I mean, he is passionate. That is something that, you do want to make sure that whatever you do in life, you're passionate about. He does pass that tenet on to his sons. And of course, at the end of the text, I think that there's some hope there, especially when he has during the questions section where he's talking to Josh. I think there's a real person down there who really is more than just basketball that he wants to force on his sons. But again, he is very problematic. So again, like I said before, none of the examples I've given you here in this video are perfect. But I think, again, all of them have certain aspects to them that are really solid, that can provide really good assistance to Lena, to Junior, and of course to Josh and JB. I've really enjoyed getting to do these videos. It's been kind of interesting to do this. I look forward to seeing what you all have to produce, and I look forward to working with you all throughout the rest of this class. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you later.